Hey guys, Kyle the Ten that I'm here bringing you my review for One Piece episode 793. Sorry this one's late, guys. I was out. I wasn't out over the weekend. I couldn't do the review, but now I'm here. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to know in this episode is the pacing. The pacing in this episode was definitely a lot better in this episode compared to the last couple episodes we've gotten. But I guess that was obvious considering what exactly what really material we were covering. Which again, like I reiterated in my last video, wasn't the best stuff. But yeah, the pacing was a lot better. I think in this episode it covered like a chapter and a half, maybe a full 2 chapters. I don't know. I'd have to go back and read this content, but yeah, it definitely covered a lot more chapters than probably what we've gotten before. Um, and but aside from the pacing, the biggest thing we got in this episode is basically how the whole layout of the German kingdom is basically all comprised of all of those snail ships. We've pretty much seen Rage and Yonji use. So all the German kingdom entirely is made up of all those of made of bits and pieces of all those of every single every single one of those ships, which honestly makes me think the German kingdom, when you think about it, really isn't even a kingdom. It's more of a seafaring base. Honestly, if it's not really an island, if you can't really call it an island, if it's not really it's not part of the world itself. It's from what we've seen. It's all pretty much artificial. So it is more of a seafaring base than it is like a kingdom. Honestly, when you think about it. So yeah, if you think about it, the Germa they're really just kind of false. They're really kind of they're just false. There's these false rulers, pretty much, who just want to think that they're high and mighty. I mean, they definitely have the status to go with it, but they have no land really to even call their own. So, and maybe that's their plan. That maybe by allying with Big Mom, that they can finally have land to call their own. I don't know, but yeah. Um, Another thing that was interesting in this episode is that every one of the Vince smokes keep enforcing that how weak and how weak and how much of a failure Sanji is. But which gives us a good look into how their superiority complex that the Vince smokes have. But at the core of it, honestly, I think we need to be real here. But honestly, at the core of it, I'm pretty sure Sanji could pretty much kick all their asses. Although, from what we saw in this episode, from what we've seen in the past, I think the only one he might have an issue with, I think the only brother he might have trouble with is his older brother Ichiji. I want to say he's the only one who wouldn't be able to kick Sanji's ass at this point. But honestly, even then, he might have a problem with Ichiji. But even then, I think Sanji could easily still stand a chance against any one of them. To be honest with you. Um, and of course, another thing in this episode is that we see how is we see is the whole reintroduction is the whole introduction to Judge Vince Smokes, Sanji's father, and it quickly turns into pretty much a whole bloody into a whole battle, but between father and son. And it like I said, that superiority mentality, it definitely shows especially with Judge. Like Judge definitely has the mentality of definitely a royal. Although I would imagine he's what is interesting about the Vince Smokes though is something that Aiju said, how the Vince Smokes have unlike most nobles who have come into their wealth and power by bloodline or whatever. And while that technically is true with the Vince Smokes, they pretty much. I will admit, one thing I do like about the Vince Smokes is that they do kind of seem to have. Is that they seem to do. Even though it is still dirty business, the Vince Smokes seem to make their fortune, their wealth on their own. They don't rely on solely just the whole bloodline thing that most nobles do. Like, if they're gonna be rich and powerful, then they want to earn that money on their own. Which, in a strange way, as dickish as they are, I do gotta compliment the Vince Smokes for at least having the guts in order to earn their own wealth and earn it their own way, rather than just kind of coming in it through the whole bloodline thing like most kings or whatever do. But yeah, I do got to give them props on that one. And and one thing I do got to give I do gotta I do have to give I do have to give all the props in order to Sanji on that fight between his father and between that little scuffle that we saw between his father and him. Is that Sanji, even in all his rage and all the rage he had for his family, he still managed to pretty much keep his cool, and he stuck to his principles, which honestly I can have nothing but respect for Sanji in that regard. Like he said, like when Judge was there tossing him the sword, he was like, use that sword, we're having a sword fight now, and he said, no, I'm a cook, I don't use my hands to fight. So yeah, nothing but props to Sanji. Now let's get into the main thing to talk about, Sanji's backstory. Sanji's backstory was, of course, even just a little piece of Sanji's backstory, I think, was showcased in this episode. But from that little piece, we got a couple of things caught my eye to me. I think that honestly, like, to me, a couple of things in Sanji's backstory, I think, were much better showcased in the anime compared to the manga in this case. One thing is of course, is the whole is Sanji's whole early love for cooking. Wow, we know for a fact that Sanji is a chef. That part has been proven time and time again, that Sanji is a pure and devoted chef. Through and through. But it's always. In a way, it shows just from an early on stage how much of a love for cooking he had. Like he was sitting there, like his brother said, he was cooking food for rats pretty much. Now, one might think that was gross, but in a way, it does show that yeah, he did have such a love for cooking that he was willing to serve anyone, whether animal person, it didn't matter. He loved cooking so much, he was willing to serve anyone as long as that they needed food. So yeah, I gotta give props to him for that. Also, we also get a look at how much hate and contempt Sanji's brothers have for him. Ichiji especially says a line along the lines of, "Why were you born different from us?" Now, we as far as I've read the manga, so I won't spoil anything. But it does, to the enemy onlys out there, I will say this: it does pose the question. It should pose the question to you: what kind of situation, or what kind of situation is Ichiji talking about? Where they're pretty much all born different? Because if it's there must judge. I'm pointing all fingers at you right now. You must have done something to your own damn kids. He must have done something to his own damn kids in order to make them different. Because even as we see in this episode, when Sanji punched Ichiji, his whole face was basically like a solid iron wall or something. Almost like it was almost like that iron body technique that the CP9 uses. But as you can see, it was he didn't even say iron body or anything. So that Judge must have done something to his own damn kids in order to enhance their fighting capabilities or something. Just to make them their own super soldier. He must have pulled like some kind of super soldier shit on them. But that's pretty much my, and in that case, where if they were turned into like miniature super soldiers at that point, then it makes the question, why is Sanji so different, and why is he considered a failure? If I had to guess, I would say that the reason why Sanji is considered a failure is because I'm assuming that the experiments didn't exactly work as well on the experiments that Judge did may have not worked as well on Sanji as it did on his brothers and sister. That's just from that's just my personal view of it, is that he's considered a failure and a weakling only because of that. But what's ironic is that being human has actually made him stronger now, because as we've seen throughout the series, Sanji has developed in so much fighting prowess and mentality as a person that it's actually probably made him stronger than his brothers, honestly. Um, Also, one thing else to note about that flashback, Judge, like I said, you're an asshole. Like, really, your son is sitting there getting beaten and bullied by his own brothers, and you do nothing other than say, "I have no use for weaklings." Like, really, motherfucker. Like, honestly, if there was child protective services, if there was anything remote of child protective services back then, I would have called him immediately on your asshole. I would have called him immediately on your asshole for basically for child abuse. Like honestly, that I guess in a way you could be considered indirect child abuse. Like he was sitting back and letting his older sons beat on one of his younger ones. It's like, fuck, dude, really? Well, I guess Youngji is younger than Sanji, but still, yeah. Like, seriously, yeah, seriously, Judge, fuck you. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have for this review. Actually, a really great episode this time. We definitely got to look into a lot more into Sanji's backstory in this one. Like, I love it when Oda has these extra layers to one of his characters' backstories. Like we definitely saw it with Luffy, and now we're seeing it with Sanji. So yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, or follow me on Twitter and Facebook. That's not even me. Signing off. Later, guys.